Good morning, everyone. It's so good to see you all on this Sunday morning, to be here, all the educators. First of all, my deep gratitude and respect to all the educators who have spared your valuable Sunday's time to attend this session. We are a community of educators under the banner 3T Hub, where we resolve to make good teachers into great. It's a concept of by the educators for the educators. So every Sunday at 10 o'clock, we meet online for a very short period of time, say half an hour to 45 minutes, where one of our educator members will be sharing their skills or sharing their learnings with us. So this is how we go. This is our 18th meetup. So today we are privileged to have one of our mentors of the Tamsh and 3T Hub, who has seen the best of both the worlds, that is of education industry, academia, and also the corporate life. He is a well-known personality. He resides in Bangalore. He has also been one of our chief resource people in educators conclave that we had in January. His video on YouTube, which is on holistic education, has been very famous. Please go and check on 3T Hub channel after we are done. This today's session will also be put up on YouTube. So I don't like to take much of your time because we have a lot to hear from Dr. Rajaram. Over to you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. So, is this good enough, the audio, video?
Yes, sir. I think it's fine.
Thank you. Since we have, very...
A little louder would be okay, but it's fine.
Let me try. Yeah. Maybe others can mute their phones, microphones. Yeah. Okay. So I think since we have very limited time, we have to start with the objective and the topic. The topic I had suggested was organic learning. That's just a title. You can go on exploring that to any extent. Today I would just like to give a introduction and then what may be its implication. So this whole idea got kind of discovered through dialoguing with youngsters, graduates, postgraduates, including some dropouts who had come from small towns, villages. Most of them had an engineering degree and with non-engineering degree also, like BA, BCom, MA, MSc, BSc kind of backgrounds, and labeled as unemployable by the industry. You are all familiar with that, I assume. The Indian graduates are considered unemployable, and that is mainly from the IT industry, right? So I was having to deal with them, rather, help them become employable, and that's where I found that a lot of barriers to learning. It's almost like the brains are dead. It's not even open for the concept of learning anymore. It's like we have done enough. We have gone to enough classes, classrooms, got enough certificates, but still I am not employable. And with the family pressure and social pressures, around that, they were even, in a state of depression and, very low self-confidence and so on. So that is when I had to really engage them individually as well as in small groups, having a dialogue to make them understand and also for me to understand what is this problem about. So you have been to schools and colleges for what, 12 years plus 4 years engineering, and if they went to BA, MA or BSc, MSc, BCom, MCom, it would be 5 years. And then some people had done MTech also. That means it is between 12 to 16 years of education, at the least 15 years. 15 to 16, 17 years of going to schools, college. I just then started wondering what is going on. We also went through that, and I know very clearly that at the end of engineering degree, I knew on earth that I don't know any engineering, whereas I was a topper in my family, in my society, in the college. I was topper. I am a genius, but only I knew that I did not know anything in engineering. So I could empathize with them, But then what is this phenomena? We go through the schools, colleges, we write all kind of exams, tests, competitive, and then school tests, college tests, university exam, and board exams, and we have passed. They have given us certification also, marks, grades, and certification, and the rest of the world calls us unemployable. It's like this is the phrase you hear often in industry or any in anybody who is in a position to employ. Yeah, they'll look at after interview they'll say virtually. I know being on the interview panel, we tell to each other this the degree they are carrying is not worth the paper on which it is printed. I'm sure all of you have heard about this. So why does that all our education adds up to just one piece of paper, and people who have to appreciate that paper on the other side of the table invariably concluded it is not worth the paper on which it is printed, which means it's only 10 paisa or maybe 5 rupees if it is some premium paper kind of thing. That is a terrible thing to do. So then we started examining, and this is a question to all of you right here. You can think about it in a minute's time. You can do this exercise and then go deeply into that offline. The exercise is like this. Can you actually count down and write down the number of tests and exams you have written in your life? That is one. How many subjects you have learned? You have been taught credit course, non-credit course, which includes languages, science, maths, technology subjects, maybe some extracurricular subject. How many subjects you have written? That is how many papers, as they call. Every term, every year, every semester, many teachers have come. The timetable was full of various teachers teaching different subjects. For every subject, there was an internal assessment, there is an examination. Finally, in your marks card, it appears as a subject. Like that, how many subjects, individual subjects, that includes part 1, part 2, part 3 of maths and so on, right? How many such subjects you have studied? Languages, science, maths, social studies, commerce, whatever, technology and so on. Now you think you have actually, you would find that you have actually learned hundreds of subjects. Can everybody mute their phone, please? Can everybody mute their phones?
Yes, sir. I have muted on their behalf. They must be unaware. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So I hope the exercise was clear. Write down every individual subject and count the number of subjects apart from number of tests and exams you have written, right? Among all these subjects, it will count to nearly 100 subjects. Out of these 100 subjects you have been taught, for which you qualified yourself, there's some pre-qualification to enter into schools and colleges and courses, and then you have paid whatever fees they asked, you have spent your lifetime on that, right? Adding up to some 16 years of your life, prime life actually, and then you got your certificates. Now, out of these 100 subjects which you have studied in 16 years, how many subjects can you claim that you have actually learned? So much that nobody can fail you. Nobody can fail you because you got university certificate finally, right? Is there, then the question reduced to people, the students in that situation, they no, no, sir. Now you can assume that they are all at the bottom of pyramid of unemployability. So maybe they have not learned, but it is true. It was true for me also. I was a topper and ranked student. It was true for me also. Even after IIT, education, being a 10-pointer, I knew that I didn't learn anything. I was not confident enough to say that nobody else can fail me in that subject because it's always of a limited, period learning and exam oriented. Your measure of success was always score you got in exam. As you know, it is facilitated that way. The teachers, the tutors, the university, everybody gives you past 5 years question paper, and students have figured out. You have to do RFM analysis of that, recency, frequency of the questions, and what are the marks allocated. Based on that, you shortlist the questions you have to study to get either 100% marks or 70% or 35%. And that's what most of people have done, and that is what is facilitated. So it turned out that there is hardly any subject, virtually no subject you have learned over 16 years with all those, drama and hundreds of subjects, not even one subject, including language, in which nobody else can fail you. Then the next logical question to ask was, okay, forget about schooling and college and anything else. Have we learned anything outside the schools and colleges? The answer is yes, of course. A lot of life skills we learned only outside. Was there no commerce, science, arts in that and language in that? Yes, of course it was there. Now can you think of one thing in which nobody else can fail? You know what was the answer? Even I had not thought of that answer. This answer came from those so-called unemployable graduates through this discussion, and they discussed among themselves and through some thinking. The answer that came was mother tongue. Have any of you thought of that ever or now when you are thinking about it? The answer coming from, engineering students, even postgraduates and science students and everybody else, commerce and arts student, graduates and postgraduates was, if there is one subject in which nobody else can fail me, and I'm confident of that, that is mother tongue. That is communicating in mother tongue. Do you agree? Chetana, you can say on behalf of others, or others can also probably quickly unmute and say.
I'm also introspecting now.
Okay.
Because our
So it is a good.
generation grew up with all the languages, mixed culture.
Yeah. So you can think about it. I had not thought about it, but it sounded like, and when you examine it, it turns out to be true. Our idea of language, learning language, because language is something common to all disciplines, science, arts, commerce, and engineering. So we can talk even medical. We can talk about language, so that everybody is on the same page, right? The purpose of language is to communicate. We are taught languages in classrooms, like English, for example. English is not our natural language. Even Hindi was not our natural language. If you are basically a native of Karnataka or Tamil Nadu and so on, our mother tongue is Kannada, whatever, other way, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Marathi, and so on. But it is not English. English we learned through classroom teaching. We can never say we know enough English to naturally recite or think of a poem or think of a prose. We will not be confident of speaking as confidently in English to an Englishman than speaking in your mother tongue to your neighborhood fellow, right? So it turns out that it is actually true. Considering the purpose of language is to communicate, right? So much so that what we think as learning is classroom learning leading to certification, and we call all illiterate people. Yes, you look at the word used, illiterate. We consider people who never went to school as illiterate, who cannot read and write as illiterate. Normally the working class, the coolies and corporate workers and so on, right? All the so-called illiterate people also speak grammatically correct language in their mother tongue. You can't challenge that, right? If the purpose of language was to communicate, then every illiterate fellow is also an expert in his mother tongue. You cannot fail him in his mother tongue. You might go to college, school, pay some fees and learn some grammar of Kannada or Marathi, and then you can ask him a grammar question and fail him. But then you can fail every graduate who went to school and who is certified also. There is always a better expert in grammar, right? A university professor of Marathi, professor of Kannada will know more about grammar, and he can fail a professor of the same language in a lower college, or a fresh teacher, language teacher of the same language, he can fail. And then there will be somebody else who would have spent his whole life learning Panini's, the Vakarana Sutra, and he can fail anybody on earth by asking some question which they didn't know. But you cannot even fail a illiterate fellow in his mother tongue for the purpose for which mother tongue exists, and for the purpose for which he learned mother tongue. That is revealing. If there is one subject in which nobody else can fail anybody else, it is their mother tongue. for the purpose for which mother tongue exists. And that was a revelation. Then we started looking at it. Okay, you went to schools and colleges, learned 100 subjects, got your marks and certificate, but you're not confident, you cannot say confidently that nobody else can fail me in this subject. But even people who never went to school, you cannot fail them. Nobody can fail them in their mother tongue, the purpose for which it was done. Then can we look at, because that is something which everybody has gone through. We all learned our mother tongue, right? It applies to us also. Everybody, educated, uneducated, and so on. Now, can we look at the way in which these subjects were taught, the way, the entire process in which, through which we learned these subjects and got certified, versus we learned and we were taught mother tongue. So the standard, the paradigm of learning is you go to school, there is a classroom, 4 walls. In some schools, there are windows, and some schools, there are no windows. Blackboard, whiteboard, expert teacher comes, there is a timetable. As soon as the bell rings, teacher comes. When next bell rings, the teacher goes, between which there's a curriculum to be delivered. To the best of his extent, he will, deliver the content of that. And then there are exams, and then tests, then valuation. We all got through that. We got finally certified. Look at mother tongue. Was there a classroom? No classroom. Was there an admission to that? Some competitive admission? No. You are not required to know anything else. There are no pre-qualification to learn mother tongue. There was no classroom. Was there an expert teacher? Right? With MA, MTech, whatever, B.Ed, M.Ed? No, there were none. Was there a timetable? No, there was no timetable. The worst part is, was there a test and exam? Not one. Through your 16 years of schooling college, you have written so many. Literally, you please count and see how many tests and exams you have written. Not one test and exam were done. Was there any evaluation, any grading? Was there even a competition to learn mother tongue? No, none of that. And nobody else can fail you in that subject. You can just survive on that. But we did all these things. A lot of competitive exam, pre-qualification, queuing up to get even admission forum in front of the branded schools and colleges, paying whatever fees they ask, paying donations, right? And then always living in the fear of failing, fear of being punished by the teacher. Then a lot of dynamics within the classroom between front benches, back benches. All that for what? Finally, you got your certificate and you're not even confident that nobody else can fail you. You live with that fear forever. So that whole teaching, the formal teaching, what for? The most of the money you paid was for the classrooms and buildings and campuses. But none of them adds up to what it was supposed to deliver, which is learning. That you are confident of living by what you learned. But here is mother tongue. It did not follow, the learning and teaching of that did not follow any of this, and nobody else can fail. When you look at that and try to understand how it was facilitated, what was the motivation? The motivation for every child was just to learn, because it wanted to understand the world. It wanted to communicate. One. Two, it was in an environment where everybody else was speaking something. They were expressing something through their mouth, using their tongue and some sounds, by which they were getting what they wanted. They were able to communicate, get things done, tell others what to do, right? Child wanted to participate in that. Child wanted to grow. And if you just observe, since we don't remember how exactly we learned, you just observe any child learning. As soon as they start speaking, they start asking questions, using symbols, using gestures, using wrong usage of words, and that's how they learn. In fact, if you observe, the motivation to start speaking is to communicate, because communication had a survival value there. And the whole environment they used, there was no admission into that. They used the environment. By interacting with the environment, they learned. And there was no expert teacher. The maid servant of the house was also a teacher. A milkman who delivers milk was also a teacher. Sweeper, was a teacher. The municipality workers who come to clean or collect your garbage were also teachers. Everybody, the adult, the youngsters, everybody was a teacher, male, female, literate, illiterate. Everybody was a teacher from whom you learned. And there was no gradation. Nobody laughed at you. In fact, it is exactly the other way around. When children do mistakes when they're learning language, everybody enjoys that. We also start mimicking their usage of words. They come up with very innovative words because they cannot express, they cannot spell exactly the word, but everybody understand what is meant. Right? They communicate with their whole being. And it's the other way around. We adults, all these, the environment, teachers in the environment, we also rather learn their language. We enjoy communicating to them in their language. Just to share some words that come to my mind in Kannada, or maybe it is true for other languages also. For meal, it's called mamu. For sleeping, it is tachi. Tachi madana, mamu madana. Like that, we learn their language and we enjoy. Then together at some point of time, the child learns what is formally correct language. Then it understands, oh, this is not called tachi, it is actually nide. Nide madana, uta madana. This is how all the teachers voluntarily participate. They walk along the child through the language journey, and the child becomes as confident as any adult. It did not require any of this formal process we talked about. That is what can be called as a organic learning if it needs a label. Just organically, you are in an environment, you have a motivation because it has a survival value or it has some joy value, and all the teachers participate in that. They walk along, and by participating, by expressing yourself, by interacting, not being afraid of being evaluated, not being afraid of being failed by anybody, rather being confident that if I make some mistake, everybody enjoys that, they will help me, along. Rather, before I completely learn their language, they learn my language, and then we go together, we learn together. If this is organic learning and it has been so efficiently evolved, it has evolved on its own, no expert has evolved it. Like we have so many educationists and who keep on rewriting the curriculum every year, right? At all levels. There's nobody who wrote curriculum for mother tongue. There are no experts. There are no expert committee, right? But everybody learned it so naturally, organically, that everybody is confident that nobody else can fail them in their mother tongue. To the educators, the challenge, or rather I would call that as enlightenment, should be that why can't we learn all other subjects also in the way the mother tongue was learned? And for the educators and facilitators of education, why can't we facilitate learning and teaching of all other subjects? Formal languages, science, maths, commerce, arts, engineering. Why can't you facilitate learning and teaching of all subjects in the way the mother tongue was facilitated? Learning of mother tongue was facilitated. Can all learning be organic? And I think it is not impossible, because in that learning center, through the dialogue, this is what I learned, and that's how it was facilitated. They have to be immersed in that as a consumer of various goods and services, whether telecom, the retail shops, you buy your clothes, you're already adult. You are already participating in the world where you are using technology, you are using data science, you are a consumer of all of that. You are a target of all those science and technologies and arts, right? Only you are not aware of that. Even as a consumer, when you start observing how you are participating, how you are just a, one target in the market who is creating all the data, you actually start understanding that you already know the data. You already know what analysis is done with the data. You already know what is the requirement for the CRM software or ERP software. You are giving that requirement. You don't have to, go through competitive exams to IIT IM to understand how to write requirements for a software, right? Or how to do some data. You are already participating in that. You are immersed in that. You just become aware of that, then consciously participate in that, consciously, collect the data, observe, write down, then you start learning. Then you have an objective and work backward. What does it take to achieve that objective? Organically, you can explore and learn everything necessary to learn a skill or to become competent in any subject. And that is how our farmers, the villagers, have become experts in farming and using bullocks for transportation, that is bullock carts, as well as using bullocks and the animal power for cultivation and so on. Don't you think there is enormous physics in that? The physics, the kinematics, the dynamics of that. I would challenge any PhD in physics or mechanics or mechanical engineering to say, I know more mechanics than a village idiot who can drive a bullock cart or using bullocks for cultivation purposes. You think about what is actually learning, you will agree that that village guy who can learn, who has learned organically to run a bullock cart, knows more about mechanical devices and the kinematics and dynamics of the system, so much so that he can control that very, very precisely, which a PhD in mechanical engineering cannot do. That is purely analytical engineering, that is purely academic learning. So if the purpose of learning is to actually become a useful resource and a confident resource, then organic learning is the only way. That's my submission.
Thank
Is
you so
there
much, sir.
time
Yes, sir,
for
we can
questions?
have some discussion for 10 minutes. So
Sure.
thank you. It was enlightening. And a lot of thought process it triggered in all our minds. I'm sure some of you must be having some questions. So if it is so, please open up. You can post it on the chat window if you're hesitant to talk, or you can also unmute yourself and ask the questions. Not
Yeah,
just
similar
questions, you
to,
can also share your opinions.
sure. Just give me one more minute. Just
Yes, sir.
like, this is an example to think about, a villager who never went to school and his mastery of, running a bullock cart or using bullocks for cultivation. That is about physics and all the engineering. The other example I would definitely like everybody to give attention to is your mothers and grandmothers. How did they learn cooking? Every morning, afternoon and evening, lunch, dinner, breakfast and snacks in between, every day for decades, they have to do perfectly. And every time it is different items. Is there no chemistry in that? Is there no biology in that? Is there no physics in that? In all the activities they have to do for cooking, and they learn it. And they do it perfectly every time. Now, if you have been a working professional, either as a teacher or as an engineer in the industry, can you tell me, is there one day, one task you do every day without doing any mistake? Right? And they do that every day for decades without any supervision, without any management, hierarchy of management and bug tracking system and that whole lot of things. Right? So please think about it. And that is organic. That is the power of organic learning. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So I would like to ask a first question, because this was very enlightening. Yes, most of us need this way of learning, but how about the system supporting all of this innovative way of learning? Not innovative, going back to the roots and learning in the same way that we learned our mother tongue, which is absolutely true. But how do you think our system can change to adapt this?
So my answer would be, this will, will be more philosophical. The reason is simple. If you look across the domain, including science, technology, absolute innovations and creative thing do not happen because of the system. It comes through individuals having deep insights. Then system tries to make a incremental improvement in the system. This is a fact. Okay, like you can keep on riding the same bicycle. Any improvement in bicycle does not happen because you keep on riding that size bicycle, right? Somebody else has to observe that, then experiment with that, and then come up with a innovation. Then they will put that as one incremental improvement in the bicycle and release it in the market. So if you are thinking of system as organizations who are already making profits out of this way of delivering education, sorry, you just don't think about them to help you in implementing this alternative thing, right? That is why homeschooling, including homeschooling, alternative schools are alternative schools. They are not created even by mistake by the mainstream education system. That's why they are called as alternative.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So anybody have got any questions, please open up. Yes.
Hello.
Yes, Mrs.
Yeah.
Pranali, please go ahead and ask.
Chaitanya, it is
Good morning. Hello.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Pranali.
Can you hear? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir. It was a really good session. So many thoughts delighted us. Like it was refreshing. What do you call thoughts? And I would like to ask few questions. Like now, the new education policy, like ADP, is going to be introduced in the schools. So, is it going to be like what the concepts what you told? Is it going to be included in NEP?
So I know somewhat about NEP. See, the intent of NEP is like this, moving this system towards this more open, more flexibility. That's why they have made policy. And as you can see, there is so much of resistance. It is associated with political ideologies and all that nonsense that happens in the name of politics, that the new government here in Karnataka wants to implement its own thing. It doesn't want to encourage implementing anything. This is what I've heard in newspapers and TV, right? So I would suggest seriously consider, experimenting with this or doing this outside the system. Changing the system is not an individual's job. With a lot of this opinion collected, they have made that policy. Making that policy document has taken many years. And I have met those people who are involved in that. With Professor Kasturi Rangan, he is a right-hand person who actually wrote most of that, is one Dr. Sridhar, Professor Sridhar. So government has facilitated starting a university because it is not easy for existing institutions to adopt that because they are happy doing what they have been doing. If you allow all students to choose whatever subjects they want to choose, then institutions have a problem providing resources for that or managing that. Like anytime in 7 years' time, they can come back and continue. You should allow them to go to any other part of Earth and learn something else, which is, administratively, it becomes very difficult. That's why they are not openly encouraging, though officially it is already implemented, right? That's why government has facilitated this Professor Sridhar himself and his team to start an alternative university, that is Chanakya University, which has started operating from 2022. Just last year it opened. It was started with a special act of Karnataka government. It is Chanakya University Act with all this freedom given, and the land is also given to them near Bangalore airport. They have started, but we don't know, when it will. But with a very good intent, the policy has been made, and with the understanding that all existing system cannot easily adopt, there will be resistance to adopt. They have enabled totally a new university to implement NEP in totality right from the beginning. So those are all initiatives. But this thought is for everybody, wherever you are. And if you have a child who wants to learn something, can you facilitate in this fashion? I can give some thoughts about that, like internships and apprenticeships. If you feel like learning some subject, even if it is engineering, science, or anything, you just go to people who are already doing that. There are professionals, there are organizations, there are industries, there are businesses. You go and work there, right? So
Yes.
you do internships, you do apprenticeships to learn. That's the only real way of learning.
Yeah.
And there is one, at least one alternative university which has come up at least 10 years ago. That is Swaraj University in Udaipur. They facilitate this. No pre-qualification. They make group of youngsters, young adults who are exploring. They are called explorers or Kojis. They stay there for 2 years. The experts or ustads come to that place. They spend time with them and explore. What does it mean? I am looking at this as a profession or this as something I want to learn. Where does it lead to? What kind of opportunities are there? What kind of business interests businesses are there? Industries are there? Or other non-industry and non-business opportunities? What can I do with my interest? So they explore, and after 2 years they get out of that. There is no certification, there is no pre-qualification, there is no post-qualification. You stay there together in small groups, you explore with different experts. Then you go and visit places. Now that university has developed such a reputation of its own that there are network of organization who will recruit, the youngsters coming out of this university, because they know that these youngsters have very, they're clear in their mind. They have explored and chosen what they want to learn, and they have learned. So they are welcome to, these organizations. So
Thank you.
if you
So we
are,
have one last question before the time is up. She want to ask Professor Aarti. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello.
Yes,
Good
madam.
morning, sir.
good morning.
Good morning, Chetana. So actually, the way you told about the language, without any struggle, we learn the language. But in academic, whatever we have, we'll be having a stipulated time. So within that, we have to make them understand. Learning, of course, is not possible within that much time. So how would we cultivate, like, to make it, to overcome that stipulated time, within that particular time, how can we make them learn most of the things?
So we have discussed this in my talk in January at that educator conclave. Also, I covered a lot of this. You see, this whole system has developed in a certain way, which is beneficial for the establishment. It is very profitable business, to be precise. Don't expect them to, help the teachers or implement all these things. No. But whereas these, like I told you about the new university, Chanakya University, and then some of the autonomous universities, the private university, they have made it flexible, because now they are not answerable to university or education department or whoever. So they have all the flexibility. So you are there, once you take an admission, I'm talking of engineering, you are there for 4 years. How you allow students to explore and learn is within your control, right? And I know some of the, the private universities in Bangalore, they're doing it, the deemed universities.